Trucker Dump, episode 177. In this week's show, we've got updates on the whole independent contractor mess and the railroad contract negotiations. We'll also talk about the FMCSA's automatic emergency braking proposal, trucker taxes, and some cool new technologies, including a trailer load sensor and a new way to make home deliveries easier for the driver. All that, plus a major LTL company continues its transformation, and I'll tell you about OOIDA's Truckers for Troops campaign. This episode is sponsored by Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at their new number, 205-576-8257. Turn up the radio.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Howdy-ho, trucker dumpers. How's the world treating you? You know, I had a pretty good week. Had a couple of crappy days in there, but, you know, that's par for the course with this economy, right? But other than that, it's been a pretty good week. Before I get into it, let me tell you who I am in case you're new to the show. My name is Todd McCann. I'm a 25-year truck driver. First 22 of that was over the road. Some of that was teaming with my wife, who is lovingly referred to as the evil overlord. And the rest of that is either solo, and the last few years I have been in the LTL industry. Been doing this podcast since 2012. Format's changed a bit over the years, but hey, now kicking out a weekly podcast. So hope if you're new to the show, you will click on that follow button or subscribe button or whatever it's called, and you will start listening every week, kind of keep you up to date on all the news and everything going on in the trucking industry. Well, not everything, but the stuff I find really interesting. Also, I've written a couple of ebooks you might want to check out. You can find those at abouttruckdriving.com. The first is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. That one is for newbies mostly that need to know the right questions to ask a company when they're, looking for a new job, because they really don't know anything about the industry. So how do you know what to ask? Well, you read this book, it explains it all, and there is a checklist in there. Well, not a checklist, a questionnaire that you can just run down through there and ask a bunch of questions, and then, ask a bunch of different companies the same set of questions, and then you can compare them and choose which company is best for you. Additionally, the second book is called Trucking Life, and that just talks about the life of a trucker. And maybe you're already a trucker and you don't need that because you're already living it, but you just want to be entertained for, 9.25 hours. Well, there's an ebook version of that, of course, but there is also a 9.25 hour audiobook attached to that. So if you want to waste basically a whole driving shift listening to my awful voice, well, have at it. Now, you can get a discount on both those books if you buy them at abouttruckdriving.com. It's both books for $14.98. That's 25% off the regular price. Or for $9.99 a piece, you can go to Amazon, iBooks, wherever you get your ebooks, and purchase them right there individually. So enough of that. So what makes this week so great? Well, this is the time of year where, actually we usually do it a little bit earlier, but this year it was a little bit later, which was kind of nice because it wasn't so hot. Anyway, what I'm talking about, I meet a friend of mine named Alan Bristol and another friend of mine who I refer to often here on the show, driver Chris Mack. I meet him over in close to Springfield where Chris lives, and we meet out there at his house and we shoot guns and sit around the campfire and have a few beers, have a few laughs. Now, Alan's a friend of mine from out at Colorado, and I met him on Twitter years ago. And, I'd stop in when I was out there in Colorado and we'd hang out some and go get something to eat, maybe have a brewski and just chat, and lots of phone calls and stuff like that. We talk on the phone quite a bit, or we used to before I became a night driver. But now that's made it even more important now because I don't ever get out to Colorado with my job, and I'm usually up all night and he is working a normal job. So I don't get to talk to him very often. So these times are really awesome when I get to hang out with Chris and Alan. Chris is in the same boat, really. as I've teased him often on the podcast about, he is a solar driver. He really only drives during daylight hours, and I'm hardly ever awake during daylight hours. So we don't talk as much on the phone as we used to either. So just great to be able to go spend some time with good friends. And just really had a good time. Went out there this past Sunday. The weather was perfect, just a little windy. Got to shoot some 9mm that I'd shot before of Alan's and his AR-15. That was pretty cool. Got to stand in the back of Chris's four-wheeler. He's got one of those big side-by-sides. Looks like an army truck. So that was really fun. Kind of felt like Rambo up in the back there. The only thing I was missing was the headband, but it was pretty cool shooting out of the back of a truck at some little targets. And you know what? I'm actually a pretty good shot from what they tell me. I hit, a lot of my targets, not all of them, but yeah, pretty good. I was pretty impressed with myself, I got to say. And my father-in-law also let me take his 357, which is a fairly long barrel. It's about a 6-inch barrel, something like that. Anyway, I felt like Dirty Harry. And of course, we had lots of Dirty Harry quotes when we were doing it, even though it wasn't a 44 Magnum, which will blow your head clean off. All right. Anyway, we just had a really good time, sat around, ate some steaks afterwards, had a couple of brewskis, and finally had to hit the road back home. And yes, I left about 4 hours between the time I drank my second brewski to the time I drove home. So I was perfectly fine. Don't you worry about that. The only thing bad about that trip is I find myself driving in day traffic. Yes, I'm not used to that. I drive nights a lot of times. I drive a little bit in the morning, so I do see some of it in a truck, but I am in a speed limited 63 mile an hour truck. Everybody passes me. I don't have to worry about it. And that made me think when I was on my way up to visit Alan and Chris, just what a pain in the butt traffic is when you can go the same speed as everyone else. We talked about the speed limiter proposal, the truck speed limiter proposal going into effect next year that they're going to try to get passed. And I was, of course, none of us want that in a truck, and we see why we don't want that. But I got to say, honestly, with my truck only going 63, I don't have to mess with a lot of the problems that a lot of other companies do. And like I said, I was driving this my car, in regular traffic, and you're always coming up on somebody that's slower than you. You're always, coming up behind. So I could really see how this adaptive cruise control stuff would really suck. I mean, the evil overlord hates it on her car. She just hates it. Turned it off immediately. And I can honestly see why, because there's so much traffic out on I-44 and I'm always coming up behind somebody. And if I didn't have an older car that didn't have that, I would have had to turn my adaptive cruise control off, or it would have just slowed me down and I wouldn't have realized it because I was listening to some jams or something. Yeah. Anyway, in a way, I'm just kind of glad I don't drive it during the day, and I'm kind of glad in a weird sort of way that I have a speed limited truck and I don't have to mess with all that. Everybody just passes me. But hey, also on the same token, if you want to give me a 70 mile an hour truck, I'll take it. I'll suffer through it. So anyway, that's how my week started. Like I said, really just when you have a good opening to the week like that, the rest of it's just gravy, even if you do have a couple of crappy days. So anyway, I hope you had a really good week, and I hope this podcast helps you continue to have a good week. So enough rambling from me. Let's say we get on with the show. Alrighty then, let's start out with something that probably should have happened a long time ago, quite frankly. Found this one on freightwaves.com. FMCSA cancels emergency hours of service waiver. Yep, finally, the COVID hours of service waiver has finally lapsed. It is interesting that the FMCSA didn't come out and just say this outright. They just kind of let it slip away quietly. Yeah, apparently this was going until through the end of September, and at the end of September, they just didn't renew it, which is amazing because they've renewed it about 1 million times since March 2020, when this all started. That's when the first exemption went into place. So anyway, the new FMCSA administrator, Robin Hutchison, decided that they just needed to do away with this. And that's despite some kickback from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, who still says that a public health emergency still exists, which is interesting since President Biden recently said the pandemic is over. So which is it, government? Make up your mind. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Just so you know, don't be trying to haul any of these loads under the hours of service exemption anymore for COVID, because it ain't going to work. Ain't going to fly at the way stations. And you know what I just said? Something that my friend driver Chris Mack pointed out to me last weekend when I was hanging out with them. He said that I used the term, that's all I have to say about that, a lot. And he was asking me if I was trying to quote Forrest Gump or not. And sometimes I actually am, and I will say it like Forrest Gump. Oh, that's all I have to say about that. And other times I think I just say it. Either way, that's all I have to say about that. All right, this next one comes out perhaps a bit earlier than you might expect it, but it has to do with taxes. IRS per diem rates for truckers stay the same. This I found on landline.media. So this is talking about the per diem rate as far as like meals when you're away from the house and stuff like that truckers can claim on their taxes every year. Well, the IRS increased the per diem rate in 2021 up from 66 per day up to 69 per day. And when you're traveling in Canada, that increased from $71 up to $74. But this year, despite all the rising inflation, the IRS decided to leave the per diems in place the way they are. Now, as a quick reminder, if you are a company driver, you can no longer claim per diem on your taxes. That went away a few years ago, so as of right now, only owner-operators and lease operators can claim the per diem tax break. Although, quite honestly, as I've said in the past, when I figured out my per diem a couple of years ago, it was actually better for me now to just take the standard deduction because that raised quite a bit. And actually, I heard on the Newsworthy podcast that there was another tax break coming. That is not going to be this year, but next year. I will put a link in the show notes to this one. I found this article over on, where was that? MarketWatch.com, I believe. Yeah, and that one's about, they're going to increase the standard deduction and change the tax brackets. Now they're going to change those about 7%. But, of course, inflation is over 8%. So I'm not really sure how effective that's going to be. Basically, it's going to lower your tax bill. But again, that starts taking effect in 2023. So you won't see that adjustment on your income tax returns until 2024. So anyway, back to the story at hand. This one confused me a little bit. It says in this article that a driver can prorate per diem for partial days of travel and claim 75% of the per diem. They don't really go into detail on that, and I don't really know what qualifies as a partial day of travel. I'd always just heard that it was if it was an overnight stay, which basically means that you took a 10-hour break. A nap does not count, by the way. And also another point that we mentioned not too long ago on the podcast here was that if you are a trucker who has no place of business and you don't maintain a fixed home, you cannot deduct any travel expenses because your truck is your home, right? So just keep that in mind, and don't try to pull anything on the IRS because, as we know from the last infrastructure package, I think it was the infrastructure package. I think is that where they added on the IRS agents? What was it? 87,000 or something like that. New IRS agents. Yeah, it's just what we need. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of this, that nothing really has changed on the per diem rates for this year. So just so you know, I know every single year when it comes to tax time, I have to look this stuff up again and think, what's the new per diem rate and all that stuff. I'm kind of glad I don't mess with that anymore. It's just easier for me and actually better for my tax return if I just file the standard exemption. Might check that out if you've never tried that before. Although I guess now, as a company driver, you pretty much have to. You don't have the choice to try to do the per diem thing. Anyway, I'm rambling. Found that one on landline.media. And again, that other article, which was about the new tax brackets and the standard deductions, I found that one on marketwatch.com. I'll put a link to both those in the show notes. And since I mentioned show notes, Those can be found at abouttruckdriving.com. This is episode 177, or you can find them right there in your podcast app. It's different for every podcast app, so just hunt around until you find them. It's basically just a long list of links that you can click on each one of these articles and look for yourself and read the whole article if you're more interested in something. Also, another way to get the show notes every week is just to sign up on abouttruckdriving.com. There is a subscribe button, and if you give me your email address, which I will not share with anybody, I will just send you all the show notes right there. You'll get them every week in your inbox. Okay? Onward. All right. How about a little update on the whole railroad strike thing going on? Now, you may be wondering why we're talking about a railroad strike on a trucking podcast, but that is because the railroads affect us. They are another freight division out there, another way to haul freight. And if they go on strike, it is going to affect the trucking industry big time. So that's just kind of why I'm keeping you up to date on this. Found this one on freightwaves.com. National Conference of Firemen and Oilers vote to ratify labor agreement. Now, not going to go into great detail on this one, but apparently there are 12 unions that need to sign on for this, and only 6 of them have ratified their contracts so far. And ratify the contract means that they voted on it and it came up with a yes, we accept this contract. But apparently, even though it is half the unions that need to vote okay on this, that only accounts for 19% of all unionized rail workers. So they got a ways to go here. So as a reminder, last I heard, they could go on strike starting November 19th, and just be prepared for that. Not that there's anything you can really do about it, unless, of course, you're a railroad worker listening to this podcast, which is highly unlikely. But anyway, just so you're up to date on that one. Freightwaves.com. Hey, speaking of unions, let's talk about a big change that's going on with one particular company right now. Well, actually, it affects many different companies. And like I say, I don't often report on stuff like this, but when it's a big deal like this, don't really know how it's going to affect the industry. And what we're talking about here is Yellow. Found this one on freightwaves.com. Yellow plans to combine New Penn and Holland networks. So I've been keeping tabs on this. This is the second part of, Yellow is they have 4 branches. They have New Penn, Redaway, Holland, and YRC Freight. And they are combining them all into one network they're calling the One Yellow. And they're calling it a super regional carrier. So to do that, they've had to merge lots of things. They've had to get their dispatch system all on one big platform. And other changes coming down the line, apparently. But for now, like earlier in the year, I should say, they did the Redaway and YRC merging out west. And now they are going to be working on combining New Penn, YRC, and Holland. And apparently that is about 62% of their fleet. So this is the bigger part of this change. Now, I know they have started this, but there's not a lot of word out about what how things are going so far. But what they're doing is kind of interesting. Like I said, they're combining a lot of terminals. They're getting rid of overlapping zip codes. So like what was happening, I guess, in the past was like a Holland driver would show up at the same place as a YRC driver, and they'd both be trying to pick up freight, and they were overlapping. They were actually driving, past each other to go to different places, and it just didn't make sense. So they realigned the zip codes to be more efficient. They're also changing the way they do some things. They're adding, it says here, 998 utility driver positions that will support these new Velocity Center operations. Velocity Centers are like giant, I don't know what you call them really, giant distribution centers, basically, where everybody meets and then they swap freight and then they take freight back to their home terminal, that kind of a thing. And these new 998 utility positions will operate about 175 miles from your home terminal, and they are guaranteed to get you home every day. That is what Yellow is saying is really going to help them in the future, is that more drivers want to be home every day. Now, that may or may not involve a pay cut, because we know the way that works in this industry, that, typically the more often you're home, the less you get paid. So that could take a big hit on some of these drivers. And as I've mentioned in the past, working for an LTL company, I can tell you that there's a lot of money to be made at LTL companies. And if they cut that payback, that may not bode well for them. So we're just going to have to see how this goes. We'll keep an eye on this. And this article doesn't really say when they're planning on finishing the whole process, but they're hopeful that this new proposal to integrate New Penn, Holland, and YRC in the East, Central, and South regions, they hope that to be implemented by the end of 2022. So that's coming up pretty quick here. So anyway, that's it for that. Just wanted to keep you up to date on Yellow, who is one of the biggest LTL companies out there and could have an effect on the entire industry, depending on how this merge goes for them. We will see. To be continued. Again, found that one on freightwaves.com. All right, how about a quick update on the independent contractor situation when it comes to California AB 5 and the rest of the country, and the U.S. Department of Labor, who put out a new proposal to decide who qualifies to be an independent contractor or not. And they were basically, all the trucking companies were looking at it, saying this is, they're going to have to look at it deeper. Well, they have done a little bit more on this, and they've come up with two problem areas they see that could cause a lot of problems for the trucking industry still. Now, they will point out that the word truck or trucking was only in this Department of Labor document like twice in the whole document. So, and that's out of 160 pages. So isn't that interesting? But anyway, they say that the Department of Labor has two particular issues that they're maybe a problem. First is regulation compliance, and the second is equipment. So the first, the regulation compliance, is they're basically saying the way it's worded. Now, again, this is not all defined yet, but they're saying the way it is worded is that if the government is saying if you are in a highly regulated industry, it is likely that you do not have control of your own destiny. Therefore, you are not an independent contractor. Now, as we all know, the trucking industry is highly regulated, so we will see how that moves forward. This article is very detailed. If you are an owner-operator or a lease operator and are interested in this, you might want to go check this out. Or, hey, if you're just a company driver who's thinking about it and wants to know what's going on, or you just want to stay in tune with what's up. Like I say, this article is fairly long and fairly detailed. Lots of details, lots of examples of situations that may or may not happen. So again, check this one out, freightwaves.com, if you're interested in this one. The second part of that is where'd it go? Oh, the equipment. And that is basically just saying that if you have to buy equipment for your company, that they are really going to be looking at as like, were you likely to already own that? For instance, they're really talking about like Uber and Lyft and things like that, where, if you're claiming that you had to buy a car for that job, they're going to look at it. The government's going to look at it and say, did you really, or did you already own that? If you already own that, you might not be qualified as a independent contractor. So they're basically saying, depending on the type of equipment you're buying and how much you're spending on that equipment compared to the cost of your business and what it brings in and all that stuff, that is what is going to play a key part in whether you are an independent owner operator or not. So obviously I don't know exactly on this one because, if you are a lease operator, you have to lease a truck, right? Because obviously you wouldn't be driving around in, you wouldn't be driving down to Walmart in your truck just from your home. Not normally, I wouldn't think. But again, that goes back to, how much control does your leasing company, not the leasing company, but the company you're leased onto, how much control do they have over that truck? And like I said, this goes into great detail. Go check it out if you're interested. Just wanted to give you a quick update that this is not looking favorable right now for owner-operators, because as we mentioned before, all you have to do is fail one aspect of the independent contractor tests that they put forth. There's 6 different things that they look at, 6 different factors to determine if you're an independent contractor. If you fail one of them, you're not an independent contractor. So that could really change the trucking industry. We will see. Freightwaves.com for that one. Hey, in the last episode, we talked about the FMCSA and how they were going forward with their truck speed limiter proposal. And that was slated to go into effect. Well, they're going to propose it in June of 2023. Well, I got another one on here. Sorry, more bad news. Landline.media. Automatic emergency braking proposal slated for early 2023. So yeah, this of course is where the federal government is thinking, hey, we would like all new trucks that are being manufactured to have automatic emergency braking in them. And like I said, they are not waiting till June on this one. This one is going in January, supposedly. So stay tuned on this one because, I'll be letting you know about a public commenting period where you're going to want to go and make your voice heard on this. Now, as I've said before, Landline.media is a part of OOIDA, which is the Owner Operator Independent Drivers Association, and they say they oppose any attempts to require automatic braking systems on heavy-duty trucks. And I like Colin Long's quote here. He is OOIDA's Director of Government Affairs. He said, quote, "They need to do the work to ensure that the technology is reliable and that it works effectively before you put the cart before the horse." Close quote. Yep, good point. Anybody who's driven one of these trucks has got automatic emergency braking in it knows that it is not 100% accurate. Sometimes it will just brake for whatever reason in the middle of the day. Sometimes it's the middle of the night and a shadow confuses it or something. Whatever they're doing, they need to get better at it. Because the last thing you need, trust me, I drive at night and you're out there often just kind of in your own little world. Everything's peaceful and quiet and everything's working great. And all of a sudden your truck just goes, you're like, what the heck just happened? It scares the living pee out of you. I gotta tell you. Wait, living? Does pee live? I don't know. Anyway, it scares the crap out of you for sure. Anyway, I'll keep you up to date on this one, of course. Check this one out on landline.media. I have been a company driver my entire 25 years. And I have to say that if I ever had a company come up to me and say, "Hey, we know you did the work last week, but we're not going to pay you for 3 months." I'd be like, that's not going to work for me. So I have to ask, as an owner operator, why are you accepting those terms? Yes, I realize that's the way business works nowadays, but you still need to make the payments and put fuel in the truck, right? That's where Porter Freight Funding comes in. If you have a customer who just refuses to pay on time, don't mess with them. Let Porter Freight Funding do it for you. To learn more, you can head over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump. Truckerdump is all one word. Or you can head over to a new phone number they set up for just Trucker Dump listeners, 205-576-8257. All you really have to do is just create an account at Porter Freight Funding. From then on, it's just a simple 3-step process. You drop off your load, you submit your paperwork to Porter, and you get paid within 24 hours. It's really that easy. And yes, you can just use this for your one-off pain-in-the-butt customers, but you might find Porter Freight Funding so easy to use that you just decide to let them handle all your collection needs. Either way is fine with Porter Freight Funding. And hey, keep in mind that Porter Freight Funding can also help you with other aspects of your running your business, such as brokering, dispatching, fuel cards, insurance, or even compliance if you got a question about getting your own authority or something like that. So please help the show by giving Porter Freight Funding a chance to show you how valuable they can be to your business. If you got questions, you can give them a call at 205-576-8257. Or if you're just ready to go ahead and make that account, head on over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump. And thanks to Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump and for giving us a cool new phone number. All right, if you travel in Wyoming, you are going to want to pay attention to this one. Found it on cdllife.com. Wyoming DOT to try out automated variable speed limit program on I-80 and Highway 28. So what this is, the Wyoming Department of Transportation is implementing a pilot program to automate, well, semi-automate all those variable speed limit signs. Now, if you've ever traveled in Wyoming, you know that they have those electronic signs that change depending on weather conditions. Well, apparently right now, those are controlled by DOT officers and highway patrol, and they can go out there and change those. Well, I don't even think they have to be on site. They can just change those, manually from a computer somewhere. And, they just look at the weather and all that stuff. Well, they're saying they're going to tie these into these weather sensors that they have installed along the roads to actually give more updated information. So, basically the speed limit would know, the second they reach freezing temperatures or something like that because of those sensors out there on the road. Now, they do say that the DOT and the troopers will still be able to override these, especially during this, well, probably always, but especially during this pilot program. And this pilot program has already rolled out. Looks like it came out on October the 19th. And so you'll be seeing that. Well, you probably won't even notice any difference. You'll just normally see the digital signs like you normally do. Now, where you'll see this again is along I-80 between Laramie and Rawlins is what they're doing on that one. And they're trying it also on Wyoming Highway 28 over South Pass, which I don't think I've ever been over that pass. Thank God, because passes are no fun. But anyway, like I said, there's not a whole lot you can do about this probably, but just be aware that, hey, those signs between Laramie and Rawlins are going to be automated. So just beware, because, if a sensor malfunctions or something like that, you don't want that speed limit sign telling you can go 75. Well, I don't know what the speed limit is up there now. Say 65, 70, and, there's ice on the road. So just don't go by those. Use your freaking brain, okay? Found this one on cdllife.com. All right, let's stick with cdllife.com for this one. Iowa DOT urges truckers to park at scale houses, promises no inspections or waking drivers. So apparently the Iowa DOT took to social media recently to say, hey, we've got lots of overnight parking at our way stations. Please use it. And of course, there is this long-term, well, they call it a myth. I don't know if it's a myth or not. I don't know. But, the myth, of course, is that you can park in the way station, but they're going to come out there and wake you up. There have been plenty of stories of that. You hear drivers talking about that, parking at a way station overnight. They get woke up first thing. Maybe their brake's not even over and they're in for an inspection. Now, the catch is that, of course, it's a good possibility that when you wake up, no matter what time of day, that scale house will be open and you will have to roll across it. But anyway, like I say, the Iowa DOT just wants to point out that, hey, we got lots of truck parking and we know there's a truck parking shortage out there. So please utilize the space we have. It's safe. It's not likely criminals are going to come in and try to break into your trailer and steal stuff while you're sitting on, right next to a way station. That's just not likely. And again, they are promising they're not going to wake you up and inspect you. So, well, keep me up to date on that. Everybody go out there and try to park at an Iowa way station and let me know if you get nailed or not. Anyway, if you want to see their social media posts, you can head on over here to cdllife.com. And hey, Iowa, if you're legit about this, thanks. We need the parking, that's for sure. Okay, this next one I found on landline.media, and there's not a lot to say about it except for, I learned something that I had always kind of wondered about. This one's called Pennsylvania Senate Committee Advances Electric-Powered Trucks Rule. What kind of an electric-powered truck rule? Well, we're talking about the weight of these electric trucks and how these batteries are freaking heavy. I know we've discussed this in the past, and I know they are quite a bit heavier than your standard internal combustion engine with the fuel tanks and everything, but I can't remember the exact numbers on it. But apparently, Pennsylvania has given an extra 2,000 pound exemption for this. So no longer will your truck, if you have an electric powered truck, you're not limited to 80,000 pounds gross. You are now limited to 82,000 pounds. Now, the thing I found interesting about this is I was thinking, and I think I said on this podcast, that they were going to have to provide some kind of an exemption for weight. And well, apparently they already have in most states. Pennsylvania is one of the last to adopt this. Yeah, who knew? So apparently the feds already, said, hey, we're good with 82,000 pounds. And they just left it up to each state to implement it in their state. And like I say, Pennsylvania is one of the last to do it. So anyway, we don't have a lot of these electric trucks out on the road right now, but in the future, we will see. I saw another article. I don't think I put the link in the show notes and probably won't, but I saw where Tesla is planning on releasing about 50,000 trucks by 2024. I think they said they're going to ramp up production. The first year of ramping up production goes pretty slow, but they say by the end of 2024, they'll have 50,000 Tesla electric semis on the road. We will see. Anyway, landline.media for this one. So this next one is a technology we have talked about in the past on the podcast. It's been quite a while though, but I really like the idea of this product. This is on Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. This one's called Solera's Spirion introduces next-gen cargo sensor. So they're calling this the IntelliScan ProView. I don't like that name, but anyway, basically what this does is it mounts on a trailer at the rear by the doors, and it has cameras and sensors that point towards the front of towards the nose of the trailer on the inside. And it's designed to tell you how much cubic feet of volume and the floor space is currently filled with freight, or if it's empty. Now, they say this new product can actually take photos and send it to, your company, whoever installs this on their trailers, and they can look at it from a distance, which would be really, really handy. These sensors, I think, would be great, because a lot of times these large carriers, they have all these trailers sitting around. They don't know. It could be at Walmart and they could have 15, 20 trailers at Walmart and they don't know which ones are empty and which ones are loaded. And then, Walmart will tell them they have empties there. And then you go and you look and all of them are full of crap. So these sensors could really help be, and a fleet be efficient, I think. But, who knows how much they cost and who knows if they would be sensible for an owner operator who, has one trailer or something like that. But I don't know, it just seems to me, they mentioned also in here for the LTL industry, that's a big thing because LTL does do a lot of cubing out, so to speak. They will stack a lot of stuff on top of each other to really maximize the space in those trucks. That's how they make or I say trucks, I meant trailers. But that's how they really make so much money. Those LTL companies make a lot of money because they cram a lot of different products in on top of each other. And, you don't often see everything just stacked on the floor. Now, on the flip side, I keep telling my company that when they do that and stack to the ceiling, it causes more damage, which doesn't make customers happy. But do they listen to me? Nah, why would they? Anyway. Check this one out on ttnews.com. Cool little sensor here called the IntelliScan ProView. And hey, if nothing else, it would keep all of us from driving around all over God's green earth looking for empty trailers, right? Yeah. Onward. Okay, what say we head over to freightwaves.com for some more interesting tech-related stuff. This one is called Last Mile Isn't Enough Anymore. It's time to look at the last 100 feet. Okay. Now, I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast that you know what last mile is. But if you do not, that is just basically the term that refers to getting the product from the distribution center to its final destination. So, like Amazon, for instance, their local vans, deliver it to your door, that kind of a thing. Well, this article is talking about a company called Beans.ai. That's BEANS.ai. And of course, AI often stands for artificial intelligence, but I imagine it also just makes a good website name. So anyway, what Beans AI is planning to do, and they've already implemented this somewhat. They are a startup company, and they are planning on basically providing maps for the last 100 feet. And what they mean by that is places like apartments, condominiums, hospitals, and nursing homes. And they say that combined makes up to 30% of all U.S. residents. Who knew? So now put yourself in the shoes of a UPS driver, say, okay? And you get to the apartment building and you've got the apartment number and everything, and you're like, okay, now what? So here's some questions they pose. Which building do you have to go to? Where's the entrance? How do you park? Where do you park? Where can you park legally? What's the access code to the entrance? Are you allowed to take an elevator, or is there a self-service elevator? What's the delivery policy? Are you even allowed to go upstairs, or do you have to leave the package in a package room or with the doorman? And if you are allowed to go upstairs, how many floors up are you going? It's crazy. So basically the way this works is that it is an app that a driver would have, and they would be able to basically just follow specific directions, And the way you would know these directions is because people have to sign up for this service. Now, typically, people have not signed up for services like this in the past because they don't want everybody, all the public knowing their address and how to get there exactly, and which door they are and which floor they're on and how you can leave packages and all that stuff. People just don't want that. But the difference here is Beans AI claims that they are not going to share any of this information. So if the customer, like me, has decided I trust this company, I can put all the details in, say I live in an apartment, and, they use it for an example that my apartment is unit 348C in building F on the north side of an apartment complex. How are they going to know to find that? Apparently there are lots of thefts from UPS drivers, FedEx drivers not being able to find the place, or they think they found it, but they put it at the wrong doorstep. And then, of course, it's an apartment building and people just come by and steal your stuff. So this will cut down on theft. And, that's good for not only for you, but for the shipping company like UPS or FedEx or whoever. So right now it looks like they are just like giving a set of instructions, like a text set of instructions, but they are working on, and they just launched recently, a 3D mapping, which could really revolutionize this kind of stuff. So let's say you're an Uber Eats driver and you've got a delivery of McDonald's, because, who doesn't order McDonald's directly to their door, right? Yeah, whatever. No. Okay, let's be reasonable. Let's say you've got some Chili's or something like that, and you got to find this apartment. Now, the whole time that food's getting cold, right? Because you're wandering around trying to figure out how to get there. Maybe you have to call the customer again and get directions in there. And Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, Uber Eats, and all these are saying that it takes DoorDash also are saying it takes a lot longer sometimes, and they're based on how fast they do things, because the more deliveries they can make in a night or a day, the more money they make. So their bottom line is affected by how quick they get there. And they say, sometimes you can take an extra 12 to 15 minutes to find the door you're looking for after you arrive. So like I say, they're saying there is a 3D mapping. So these drivers will be able to just follow the address to get to the actual location, then pull out the app, open it up, and it just walks you down the hallways and the sidewalks and everything. Pretty cool. Now, again, you're going to have to trust this company as a customer to sign up for it. So then, if UPS or FedEx or whoever decides to use this service, will actually be able to locate your place better. I could see this in the future where it even goes even further, like Amazon. I think, maybe, I can't remember which company it was, but they were trying this thing where they would actually have access to your house, and they would come into your house and actually put the groceries away and stuff like that in your fridge. That is a little crossing the line to me, a little creepy, but I could actually see them Boy, I don't know. I could see if you lived in a high crime neighborhood that you might want to let UPS have access to your house with a code or something like that. And they could just drop the package inside your door and lock the door and close it behind them. But as we all know right now, that ain't probably going to happen because UPS walks up, they tap lightly on your door so you don't answer it and they don't have to talk to you. And then they run back to their truck. That's the way it works nowadays. But anyway, neat service here. Check this one out. This one is Beans AI, and you can learn more about how all this works, including there's a video on it where FreightWaves interviews the founders of this company. So go check this out at freightwaves.com. Pretty dang cool. Well, as we all know, truck parking is at a premium nowadays, and any new truck parking coming into the system is awesome, right? Well, I've got a couple articles here. First is on landline.media. This is a new Pilot Flying J in Palmdale, California. Now, I was not aware where this is. I had to look it up, and apparently it's north of Los Angeles, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. If you take Highway 14 off to the east from Santa Clarita and get on Highway 18, it is out there, kind of out in the boondocks, but there's probably a lot of parking needed out there. It wouldn't surprise me. That close to, any parking close to LA is a good thing. They really need it. Although this isn't exactly close, but at least maybe you could stage out there if you're coming down that direction. Anyway, this Pilot Flying J has 55 truck parking spaces, 7 diesel lanes, showers, a full deli, self-checkouts, and more. That'd be awesome if, it's a new Pilot Flying J, and it'd be awesome if they put one of those new burrito junctions in it, but it doesn't surprise me kind of being out here in the middle of nowhere. So apparently this does not have any kind of fast food or any kind of restaurant in it. It's just got their deli on it. But hey, that's better than nothing, right? In addition to this new truck stop, we've talked about how Pilot Flying J is doing this New Horizons initiative where they're remodeling a bunch of their facilities. And Pilot announced that they have remodeled 8 new ones. Well, 8 old ones, I should say. Hope Hole, Alabama, Altoona, Iowa, Pontoon Beach, Illinois, Boonville, Missouri, Joplin, Missouri, Sullivan, Missouri, Florence, South Carolina, and Gordonsville, Tennessee. Isn't that interesting? I'm by that Pontoon Beach one quite a bit, and of course the Joplin one is right where I live, and I haven't been in either one of them recently. I probably need to go check those out. Actually, I was going to stop at the Pontoon Beach one just the other night and decided not to. Oh well, I'll check them out at some point. Anyway, they're offering some discounts at all of these newly remodeled places, sometimes up to 25% on food and beverages. You can use the promo code PFJ October in the Pilot Flying J Fuel Rewards app. Those perks are going on through October 31st. So coming up on an end here. In addition, and perhaps more importantly right now, is Pilot Flying J. All Pilot Flying J travel centers are offering a 10-cent fuel discount. So that's in this news release. Interesting. Kind of weird that they would just kind of tack that on to a thing about remodeling. But, well, I guess if you want to get 10-cent fuel discount, head on into a Pilot or a Flying J. Again, I found this one on landline.media. And the second new truck stop is, of course, a Love's. Drink again, because this is a milestone for Love's. Not only is it the 81st Love's in their home state of Oklahoma, but it's also their 600th location in the U.S. Congratulations, Love's. So this one is located off I-35 in Perry, Oklahoma. That is exit 186. They've got an Arby's restaurant, 60 truck parking spaces, 6 diesel bays and propane, 5 showers, laundry facilities, cat scale, and a dog park. And that's not all. According to this article here, Love's has also announced that the company has added Amazon lockers at over 50 locations across the country. That's really cool. If you're not aware what an Amazon locker is, it's for, truckers who are on the road a lot, or maybe they don't even have a home, and you can have one of these Amazon lockers. Well, you can have Amazon send your products that you order through them to one of these Amazon lockers, and you can just swing by and pick it up at one of these locations. Pretty cool that Loves is adding that. I'm surprised truck stops haven't done this before. And if they have, let me know. truckerdump@gmail.com. I have just never heard of one. So anyway, congratulations to Loves for your 600th store. That's awesome. Check this one out on cdlife.com. And this last one I left back here on purpose because I want this to be fresh on your mind when the podcast ends. This one came from Laneline.media, and they want you to know that OOIDA is gearing up for Truckers for Troops campaign. So Truckers for Troops is a campaign that raises funds, and they send military care packages to military members serving in combat zones, and they also contribute to the Veterans Community Project, which makes a difference in the lives of homeless veterans. So this is their 16th annual event. This year, they are running it from November 7th, that's a Monday, through the start of business on Monday, November 14th. So how this works is OOIDA offers $10 off their regular membership price. That's to join OOIDA. So instead of $45, it's only $35. And 10% of the amount paid during the campaign week will go towards the Troops for Truckers Fund. And then OOIDA is going to match those funds. So for instance, last year, OOIDA donated $32,300, which took their total for the last 15 years up to $700,000 donated to military veterans. Pretty dang cool. That's awesome, OOIDA. It's really cool you're doing this. And it's unsurprising because they say here in the article that more than 1/3 of OOIDA members are veterans of the military. Who knew? That's pretty cool, though. It's pretty awesome. Anything we can do to support our troops and, people who have given a big portion of their lives and risked their lives for this country, deserve to be taken care of, right? So, hey, if you've ever thought about joining OOIDA, OOIDA is primarily for owner-operators, but they have benefits for company drivers too. So just go check them out. You can also call their main number. That is 816-229-5791. If you're calling during business hours, they say to tell them you're calling about Truckers for Troops, and they'll get you over to membership, and those phones will be answered live until 5:30 p.m. on any business day. That's Central Time, by the way, 5:30 p.m. Central. And there's also a way to contribute to the OOIDA Foundation through a 501c3 nonprofit. So check that out. If you're over here, there's a link to that if you want to just give directly to that fund. Anyway, now that that's fresh on your mind, head on over to OOIDA and get that done, okay? Awesome sauce. Well, that's not only going to do it for the news, but also for the entire show. And that is because we do not have a Trucker Grub segment this week or any listener feedback. Not cool. It's one of my favorite parts of the show. So if you want to get your voice heard on the next episode, send me a comment or a suggestion on whatever, maybe a story we've covered, maybe something you'd like to be covered, maybe just an insult, whatever you got for me, send it my way, truckerdump@gmail.com. That's truckerdump@gmail.com, since I said that about a million mile an hour the first time through. truckerdump@gmail.com. Also, you can send in your Trucker Grub segment if you have a favorite place that you like to eat and you can get to in your truck. Please send that along with the location, the type of food, where the restaurant is, what the name of it, a website preferably so I can learn more about it and all that good stuff. Keep that about 3 minutes or less. Record that audio only right into your phone and send it off to truckerdump@gmail.com. But of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at the new number 205-576-8257. Time to pack it up and head on out of here. So hey, since we didn't have any listener feedback this time around, what say we focus on how you can contact me? Did you know there was a contact page on abouttruckdriving.com? Yep. And although I put a lot of effort into injecting some pathetic attempts at humor on that page, I don't know if anyone ever actually sees it. It does tell you every way you can contact me, though, including email addresses, Twitter handles, and links to join the Trucker Dump and Facebook groups. So head on over to abouttruckdriving.com and have a look. If nothing else, you can send listener feedback insulting my lame humor. As always, thanks for listening and following the podcast. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. So anyway, the new... what was that? And thanks to Porter Freight Funding for And thanks to Porter Freight Funding. And thanks to Porter Freight Funding.